There's nothing worse than Christmas at 80 degrees, really.
Right. It's a little weird.
Is that what you're experiencing right now?
No, actually, we're freezing to death, and it feels very Christmassy because it's like 65 degrees or something. So. This is Hot Buttons, a show about the future of fashion and culture on a changing planet. This week, listener voicemails on curbing our consumption and wondering if women's retail is predatory. And as always, a look at the news shaping fashion's sustainable future. I'm Christina Binkley. I'm a contributing writer at Vogue Business and the Wall Street Journal. Rachel Kibbe of Circular Services Group is in New York. Rachel, how's it going?
It's going great, Christina. Thanks.
And the CEO of Thrilling, Sheila Kim Parker, joins us upstairs from South Salem, New York.
Hey, Christina.
I am, by the way, staring across the room at our Christmas tree, which we finally put up, and I've dived completely into Christmas mode. That's where my brain is. I don't know about you guys.
My husband is Jewish, but we celebrate all the holidays, and the
so
kids
fun.
Are spoiled rotten.
Do you do a gift every day for Hanukkah for them? And
no,
then Christmas?
We did. We had my husband's family over this past weekend to celebrate Hanukkah, and we just did like one kind of family celebration. And they got a couple gifts then, but yeah, they're like, this is awesome.
This is 8 weeks.
Can we also be
joy.
Can we adopt some other religions?
What else is there?
Yeah.
So we got a bunch of voicemails on our caller line. One of them punched me in the gut, and I think we should listen to that one first, and then maybe talk about it and move on to the second.
Let's do it.
Hello there. I'm Nathan. I'm 22, so yeah, I'm that age group, and I'm actually reaching out. I work at Nordstrom. Specifically, I'm a suit measurer for a brand called Indochino. If I go upstairs, I feel that women's fashion is almost predatory. You can get a same or similar blazer from a brand like Vince, but it's made of 100% polyester. It's unlined, or the buttons aren't functional, little things like that. And I think that women are less likely to know that there's a difference in those fabrics for roughly around the same price point. That's really interesting to me. I'd love for you guys to explore that thought process too, of the materials between the gender of our clothes is even different. And maybe that says something about what we expect for the longevity of that item in somebody's wardrobe. Thank you guys. I genuinely appreciate it and love listening to your podcast.
Okay, boom. I don't know about you guys, but when I heard him say that, from the moment he said going up to the women's wear department feels predatory, it reminded me of a column I wrote years ago when I was a fashion columnist at the Wall Street Journal, and I did a column on how to shop like a man, and I interviewed all these men about how they shopped, and it was revelatory for me. Like, they would walk in, and the first thing, and every retailer will tell you this, they do this. Men will walk in, and the first thing they do is they reach out and they grab the fabric and feel it. And if it doesn't feel good, they walk away. Could you imagine walking up to a sequined gown, which is never going to feel good, right? Sequins are not comfortable. And walking away. Women they just don't have the expectations that clothes. Right. We've been trained not to have the expectations that clothes will work for us and fit us well the way men do.
I have to say, I've always done that, like, just naturally. I just am so tactile, and I just love the feel of fabrics, and that's one of the things that got me interested in fashion. And for that reason, like, a personal anecdote is that one of the first internships I did when I was studying at Parsons way back in the day was for Jack Spade, which was a menswear brand owned by Kate Spade at the time. And I did that because I just loved menswear so much because of the feel of the fabrics and the construction of the apparel. It just felt better to me, and it felt like I always wished that women had the same options.
Yeah, I was hoping you would share some of your experiences, some of your internship experiences, because I know that you've seen this firsthand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I feel like so much of this has to do with what Charles Kahn talked about in the Patagonia decision to put the family's equity interest into a trust versus trusting an IPO or acquisition process, because the capitalist and growth objectives for every company is so strong. They did not trust that inevitably they would make decisions to, compromise on quality and cut costs. And try to compete more and more with fast fashion, which I assume folks feel like are creeping into taking over some of the dollars of some of their core customers. And so, I do think that it has a lot to do with people adopting the practices of fast fashion and trying to maximize profit as much as possible.
Yeah, and unfortunately it's kind of the fabric that our clothes are made from, sadly, is one of the first things that goes to the chopping block. And
when they're trying to cut costs.
To cut costs and to save on margins, because they assume people won't notice what, like this blue cotton versus that blue cotton. Well, it makes a huge difference in terms of durability and the experience. And I found this made me look up sort of the pink tax. You all know what the pink tax is?
Yeah. Everything costs more if you're a woman.
Yeah, it's that concept. And I found the New York City Department of Consumer Affairs did a study on the pink tax, which is how much more women pay for certain goods, including clothing. Also
dry cleaning.
Yeah, health and personal care, shirts. And they found that among all those things, shirts had a 15% pink tax, and dress shirts a 13%. They didn't really go into why. They just sort of did the study. Interestingly enough, though, men's underwear were 29% more. I have theories around that.
Well, but look at it all. Men's underwear is like 4 times as large, just the fabric alone.
Right. Exactly.
Little
thong bikinis.
Yeah. And women are expected to have more in general.
Yeah. Wait, Rachel, you're saying the cost of the shirts are more expensive?
Cost of shirts overall as a category for women are about 15% more than men's shirts. And dress shirts, 13%.
I think it's such an incredibly important point, is that for some reason, and we never really know why, manufacturers are charging us more for clothing. Women's clothes in general has less fabric. It might have more detailing depending on the shirt, but it also has they cut corners more in the fabric, right? Smaller seams so small that you can't let a shirt out, for instance. So then you end up buying a shirt too large and having it cut back if you want to have alterations to make it fit.
Or the no pocket trick, which enrages me. Fake pockets.
Yes.
I mean,
why?
Pockets that look like there's a pocket and it's only 1 inch deep.
So frustrating.
Yeah.
I feel like so much of this has to do with what we've talked about all year, which is the impact that fast fashion has had on the industry overall, and the way that women consume. I guess if you looked at consumption by gender for fast fashion, that women, I'm sure, are disproportionately the higher take the higher share of it, and I wonder why.
There was an Atlantic article that talked about how fast fashion or marketing in general is targeted at women at their most vulnerable developmental states, when they are most insecure about themselves and their place in the world and their bodies, most specifically. And I mean, that's fast fashion. Who is it directed to?
Right. Absolutely.
I recently had a kind of a week of Uber menswear shopping with my son, who's 23, and I just got a job as a senatorial aide, and is going to go to Washington and needs to wear suits every day, tie, whole thing. And so we spent a bunch of time over several days in menswear stores, and I noticed in one of them, it was actually we went into Banana Republic, and it was one of their flagship stores. I swear, I think that they've really been imitating Ralph Lauren stores, by the way. It was really interesting the way they've organized that one. But we walk in the front, and it was 2 stories, and the bottom story was all women's wear, all kinds of stuff thrown at you. And then you get to the back of the store, and there's a grand staircase that you go up to the next level. You suddenly feel like you entered a club. And there were sort of all these rooms that were styled by kind of the style of what you're getting. Like there was the room for suits and the room for sort of more casual stuff. And There were like 6 or 8 of them. And suddenly all of these people materialized to ask us if they could help us. Like 3 people. I mean,
Suddenly there was attendance.
Right this way, sir.
I was like, what's going on downstairs?
You're like, is this what it's like to be a guy?
This is what, yeah,
into the world.
exactly. That's exactly right. They were like, it was a pretty high-end experience for Banana Republic. I
Wow.
walked out of there very impressed, actually, with the fabrications that Banana Republic is doing. They're doing what we've talked about this before. Remember when J. Crew was like using Laura Piana yarns in cashmere and things like that? They're doing Italian yarns and writing it on the label, the name of the factory that the yarn came from. And it says made in China, but the yarn came from da-da-da and Biella. That kind of, it's pretty cool.
Wow.
This made me think about LuLaRoe and that whole debacle and how women, especially mothers, were targeted or are targeted in multi-level marketing schemes in fashion because they want to work from home, they want their own income, and then women are preyed upon and encouraged to prey upon their own networks, which in and of itself takes advantage of the fact that women are community builders and that we have large networks of relationships, and then sell fast fashion to our friends. Like, it's not just fast fashion in and of itself; it's also multi-level marketing schemes in beauty and in fast fashion. And I know men also probably have their own sort of MLM schemes.
Do they?
I think maybe in vitamins and like
Crypto.
powder.
It's called crypto.
Crypto and
Protein
powders,
powder, yeah.
and you know what I mean?
for
Like, but it's less like, it feels more like influencery, and MLMs for women, and specifically in fashion and in beauty, feel more targeted at just your everyday woman who wants to earn a living and do so from home.
Did you guys see that Rihanna's company, Savage by Fenty, just got fined big time? By the way, we should get hats off to the Santa Monica, California district attorney who went after her brand and another one that's owned by the same overall company for it's a $1.5 million fine that to Rihanna's company, that she was signing people up, or the brand was signing people up for subscriptions to the lingerie when they didn't realize it. It's $59 a month.
Wow.
And
A
then
lot
they,
of a lot of companies have done that, and I can name them who have gotten away with it and never really been called out for it. Like, a lot of beauty brands will do that. Suddenly you'll be subscribed to a foundation that you never wanted to be subscribed to, and I don't know. Yeah.
Well, the Santa Monica district attorney said he wanted to make an example out of Rihanna and Savage by Fenty because this was his second one of these brands that he's gone after, and he's going to go after more. So, here's this like city district attorney who's taking on the subscription fashion world. Yeah. It's the holidays. Everybody's consuming more of everything right now, from food and drink to clothing and everything else. And we had another caller come in who was very thoughtful about sort of how we can approach the issue of consumption.
Hi, my name is Chantal. I'm a huge fan of the show. My question for you is, how can we focus this conversation more on getting off the treadmill of consumption culture? It seems like without a radical change in our discourse and norms around what and how much stuff we collectively think we want and need, there's really no way to break the vicious cycle of overproduction and overconsumption. Would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks again. Bye.
Chantal is really getting to the heart of the matter, which is exactly this, which is cycle of consumption fueled by capitalist infrastructure.
And we brought this up a few weeks ago, and we were thinking, I remember thinking, we need to bring on a sociologist or a psychologist or an addiction specialist to talk to us about
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah. Actually, addiction, I think,
is
you nail
exactly
it
right.
there.
Well,
That's
exactly right.
So I looked up shopping addictions because I just don't know. I know it's a real thing for which people seek treatment. And there's something called buying shopping disorder, BSD. It's an addiction in which people use shopping as a coping mechanism to regulate their emotions by either getting pleasure or relief from shopping. There was a lot of interesting things about this disorder that I think I relate to personally just as a human, and I think we can all relate to. There's something called queue reactivity. Or excitement from shopping queues. And if you are more reactive to shopping queues, and those can come in the form of targeted and sponsored online ads that can sort of really, really kick up people who have a strong propensity to have a reactivity to this, to be addicted to shopping.
When you say shopping queues, you mean shopping queue like
not a line,
CUE,
not
queue,
not standing on line.
A queue to start shopping.
Queue reactivity.
Okay.
So it's like if you get a queue to buy something, you know, if you don't have a shopping addiction, you may say, "Oh, I'd like that," or maybe it doesn't even sort of really register for you. I don't have a shopping addiction. I can identify with the compulsion to buy something I really want. But if you're a person that has extreme reactivity to these cues, that can be predatory, you know, like extreme marketing, extremely targeted ads towards you. It can, and
Instagram. I mean,
and I completely agree, Rachel. I feel like it's not just those who are prone to, kind of extreme addictions. I think it affects all of us, and it's purposeful, it's intentional, because the act of making us buy things that we don't need, that's kind of it's more acute now, but it's kind of an age-old problem we've had, and crosses every single consumer product category. Yeah, and it's definitely science, not art. Like, these brands, these marketing agencies have spent hundreds of millions of dollars over decades investing in PhD level research and science to engineer the packaging, the marketing, the retail layout. There was this great stat that apparently 2/3 of supermarket purchases were not intended by the shopper when they entered that store.
Oh,
so all impulse buying.
I'm raising my hand.
Right, exactly.
Me and Costco. But oh my God.
I mean, there's an element of it where it's not really 100% our fault, because that is on purpose. That's 100% intentional. And CNBC just published a study that said 73% of Americans feel that most of their purchases these days are spontaneous. So marketing has gotten more sophisticated. I think there's a certain level of financial engineering that's also gotten more sophisticated. In terms of fashion, you have these artificially low prices, especially as it relates to fast fashion. Yes. They're artificially depressed. You have
because
easy returns.
They've paid slaves to make them.
Exactly right. So you have easy returns, you have free shipping, and then you have these buy now, pay later schemes that is particularly seductive for younger generations. And that's all of that kind of feeds this culture of consumption, and it's 100% intentional.
It's interesting, like all those barriers that you mentioned that have sort of been removed to enable people to just make decisions that they might otherwise not make in terms of shopping.
Absolutely.
If they had those barriers. There's also something when I was looking at shopping addictions, there's something called coupling, and online shopping inherently removes coupling. And what coupling is when you're taking money out of your pocket and you're paying for something, you see the loss of that in front of your face. But if you're paying for something online with a credit card, you're not coupling the loss of that money with the purchase of that good right away.
Oh, totally. It's why I feel like Uber Eats and Ubers are free. I'm like, oh, that didn't cost me anything. That was free.
It just cost me 40% more than if I
a $40 salad
takeout.
Free.
I also have a lot of free money at Amazon.
Yes, me too.
Do you know what, though? Honestly, I think doing this podcast with the two of you has definitely 120% changed my consumption patterns.
I made my first luxury purse purchase on the Real a couple weeks ago. I've started to think about, there was something, I think I've talked about it before, but there was a bit of a barrier for me in terms of buying luxury, because I felt like it was signaling something that I wasn't. And I've started to think about it in a whole new way.
What did you buy? Will you tell us?
I bought a Fendi bag. Should I show it to you?
Show and tell.
Yes.
Okay. I have it right here.
Oh my God. Go get it.
Okay.
Oh,
that's
gorgeous.
Beautiful. You will have that. That is a really good bag.
Right.
And you will have that forever. You will. It's going to last. Look, it's probably.
You'll be able to give it to your.
Show us the bottom. I'm going to show us the bottom. Yeah. See those little metal things there?
Yep.
That's
and they're
so
in
you can put it on
condition.
the floor, and the thing and the purse doesn't get scuffed.
And it fits a laptop, and it's just got the most beautiful
really
details.
nice.
And I have to say, the amount of compliments I've gotten on this bag, I never thought people would they know whether they're interested in fashion or not. They're like, oh, what is that? And it's so special. And if it were to need a repair, I would definitely get it repaired.
No, absolutely.
Right.
And that's the thing, is that I feel like all the kind of financial engineering we were just talking about, I feel like people are really, really seduced by this fast fashion is more affordable concept. And in fact, they actually
Which
might be
it's
spending
not.
the same amount, but the idea of spending $20 on 10 dresses feels immediately better than spending $200 on one dress. And I think that, that financial, that kind of tricky financial engineering around making people feel like they can afford more fast fashion. And for our younger generations these days, millennials, the first generation to fall behind their parents in terms of standard of living and having higher student debt, 2x the amount of debt than their parents at the same ages, higher housing costs, earning far less, and Gen Z are on track to do even worse than millennials. And so these generations are, I think, fueling really the fast fashion rise, who are particularly susceptible to the idea that I deserve more affordable fast fashion, even though at the end of the day, they actually might be spending the same amount.
Cost
Absolutely.
per wear. How many times am I going to wear this? If I'm not going to wear it 35 times, why am I buying it? Right. I mean, for our parents and grandparents, relative to their income, clothes were way more expensive than they are now.
Right.
And they really thought through every. I see my mother doing this, and sometimes it makes me a little crazy. She'll be looking at a pair of pants, and she'll be like, the pockets aren't perfect. I don't want these. And I'll be like, but everything else about these is perfect. Like, so what if the pockets
Get
aren't
over
perfect?
it.
She wants to love it. She wants to love it for
She
decades.
wants to love all of it. Exactly.
Well, I have to say, we're also the fact that it's taken me this long, knowing how much I know, to start investing in myself in terms of wardrobe is interesting. And I have to say that the pleasure I've gotten from having this bag, and I have it sitting out and I look at it every day and I'm so happy. And people are denying themselves that by buying 10 pairs of jeans or turning over their wardrobes constantly. They're denying themselves the experience of owning something that they really cherish.
Yeah. And you went to the Real, which makes it much more affordable, right? I mean, that bag.
Oh, so it was on
not
sale.
from the Real is out of
it
reach of most humans. But
I would never have bought.
But there are places to get them.
Yeah, and I was invested in. I think I looked at it for a long time. I had it in my cart, and I got it when it was even more on sale. And so I was really invested in this item, and I kept going back to it, thinking, it wasn't just like, I kind of like this. It's 12 o'clock at night, and I'm watching Netflix.
But that's the thing, is that most people will feel like they also don't want to invest that amount of time, and that's why I feel like actually the solution, and Rachel, I know you're all over this since you're leading so much of the policy effort. I feel like the solution actually has to come from policy, and has to go back to the responsibility of corporations in this.
The EU is working on that a little bit.
Absolutely,
They're ahead of the rest of the world on it.
Yeah, and I keep going back to I love the example of how did we deal with tobacco, which is the same kind of thing, which is like it's an unnecessary product. Nobody needs to smoke a cigarette, but it's a free capitalist society. You're allowed to purchase what you want. You can make what you want as long as you're not breaking any laws. And so how do they effectively combat that? And it was so interesting. I was reading about World Health Organization's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control that they signed in 2003. They got 168 countries to sign on to this. And listen to this, the objective that they laid out.
Okay.
The objective is to protect present and future generations from the devastating health, social, environmental, and economic consequences of tobacco consumption by providing a framework for tobacco control measures in order to reduce tobacco use. So this is very clearly laying out, they want people to be consuming less tobacco. And so what were the levers that they used? Taxes.
Yeah.
Extremely well-funded public awareness campaigns, the labeling of products, and very heavy restrictions on how the product is marketed. And they couple that with establishing civil and criminal liability for any breaking of these rules, and of course for any damage incurred by the products. But I always think that that's such a great framework for how did we deal with tobacco. It's such a great framework to thinking about how do we deal with, in a free capitalist society where we're not saying, we can't tell people don't make this and don't buy this. But what are the levers that have worked really well in the past?
That's a great framework. Do you think there's any, Rachel, you go to Washington, you talk to people there about policy. Do you think that there's potential for something like that regarding controlling fast fashion?
I do. I think that it's going to be, I think we're going to have a different path just because it's not as directly linked to public health.
Yeah,
but
that's the thing, the visceral public health
the cancer,
right?
yeah.
And and because the environmental impacts are not as much here domestically as they are elsewhere, but we have other ancillary impacts like
microplastics.
Actually, those are mostly abroad too, or half abroad in the upstream production process. But like waste in our landfills, like the waste for which we're responsible to sending to other countries, we're going to have to make a bit of a different argument around sort of our contribution to climate change overall, and the different sort of parts of that and the different levers that you can pull. It's different too because it's a municipal waste issue. I think some of the things that you mentioned, like taxes and labeling and all of those things are going to be a really important part of how we start to address reducing the amount of fast fashion that we're both inputting into our own systems and landfills and the global south systems and lack of landfills, but also how we're going to get the funding to build the infrastructure and provide the green jobs that are going to be available. Because there's also a lot of positive impact that we can talk about so with tobacco, it's incredible. The positive impact is you survive, you don't die an unnecessary death from this. But for apparel and for circularity, the positive impact can also be health implications, but more immediately for the United States, there's domestic job implications. We have an opportunity to hire a lot of people and build infrastructure. We can make repair accessible. We can make reuse and resale more accessible and not just sort of a side project. We can finally build recycling infrastructure. And there's a tremendous sort of infrastructural opportunity here and an energy opportunity too, like getting people to understand that that the waste we are producing is fossil fuel based, and it doesn't have to be, or it can be less so. I do think that there is a tremendous public awareness analogy that can be made for tobacco, and I do think it's an addiction. I think there's a lot of adjacent sort of tactics we can use that. Yep. But I think the solution is going to be a little different.
The economic impact that you just referred to, that it's literally jobs.
It's literally
and of
jobs.
Course, those become those reinforce themselves because if you have people who have jobs, they are also spending in their community. So
right,
you get these cycles.
And unlike tobacco, we're not saying like you can't do this anymore. We're trying to take down tobacco companies. We're not trying to take down fast fashion companies. We're not trying to take down fashion companies. We're trying to build new economies around a different type of fashion system.
Yeah,
absolutely. Though they were not explicitly trying to take down the tobacco companies. In
not
fact,
explicitly.
Almost all of them are still
fine.
Still around.
Yeah, they're doing fine. But I think they perceived it as such, and fashion companies may perceive it as such. But I think there's a more direct argument to say, no, this is just, turning the dial on where your revenue streams may come from. And yes, it may be painful, but you can still exist should you decide to sort of exist in the system that we're going to need to support the planet.
This sort of leads into a couple of newsy things that happened recently that I think we wanted to talk about. For instance, 119 nations signed on to this 30 by 30 plan to preserve 30% of the planet's land and oceans by 2030. Did you guys see that? It was at COP15, a biodiversity meeting in Montreal. That came out of nowhere for me. I didn't even know that was happening. Yeah. I think the U.S. did not sign. Did I read that? Am I right about that?
They did not. Yeah.
Okay.
We have our own bill that they're claiming accomplishes the same thing. So they endorsed it, but they didn't sign it. Because I think, yeah.
Okay, I guess. I don't know what to think about that, but...
Yeah.
And
I don't know. Good job, U.S. I don't know. No comment until we know more.
No, exactly. In the fight against greenwashing, the FTC voted to begin reviewing the green guides that are used to determine if a company's claims around their environmental impact are actually real. Okay, yay. We've had a lot of movement toward trying to curb greenwashing in this past year, both in Europe and now here.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
Yeah. It's really exciting. I mean, so the green guides were first, for a little background, the green guides were first introduced by the Federal Trade Commission in 1992. They were last updated in 2012. And they were designed to help marketers and the marketers at company avoid making environmental claims that weren't true, that misled customers. So they're truly in place to protect customers and protect companies from making misleading claims. So the claims must be truthful, and not only truthful, but substantiated. So the rub is, at present, since they haven't been updated since 2012, they don't even define the word sustainability, nor are they overall just legally enforceable. They're a framework for which you can enforce and litigate, but they aren't legally enforceable in and of itself. They cover recycling, general environmental benefits, compostability, ozone impacts, carbon offsets, the use of healthy ingredients such as free of and non-toxic, manufacturing with renewable energy, and more. I think for fashion's purposes, recycling is most interesting. For recycling, the green guides at present discuss when and how marketers should make claims about recyclability and recycled content. For context on where we are with the green guides overall, last Wednesday they voted unanimously to review them, which could include modifying, maintaining, or rescinding them entirely. The chair of the FTC, Lena Khan, who I looked up, she's a badass. She's only 33 years old, and is heavily involved in antitrust, and just really cool. She's made some statements that made me feel that this could be really important to fashion. And it's funny to look back at 2012. It seems like, oh my God, how could they not include sustainability, or how could they not include textiles? Well, they did contemplate textiles at first back in 2012, but back then we were just thinking about like organic or not, like organic cotton or not. We weren't really thinking about recycled content, and they decided that organic was under agriculture purview. So now Lena has stated that a question, she has said that, she has stated that, sorry, I lost myself in my notes. Oh, she has stated that a question that may be contemplated is whether claims that a product is recyclable should reflect where a product ultimately ends up. So, right. So, you buy something, and this could be, this can apply to fashion, but I think overall most people would think about this in terms of like their yogurt containers. Like if it says it's recyclable, we believe it's recyclable, but
totally.
Yeah. And
then we find out it isn't.
Right.
Or all the plastic bags that say recyclable, and then local municipal things can't handle them. I'm even getting, that's true, even the things that say that they're compostable now, and then you find out it's not compostable in your yard. It's compostable if you have a special composting facility,
right,
which nobody has.
You don't have that?
Don't have
Weird.
Right. And if you think about recycled too, in terms of packaging, both packaging and textiles, people want to know, okay, well, what is it made of? Is it made of plastic? Is it recycled out of plastic containers? Is it recycled out of post-consumer industrial content? Is it ultimately, I think people think that when they see recycled, it was recycled out of used items. And that's the goal really with recycling is you take the used and not just the industrial offcuts of any industry, but you take the used things. So those types of things still need definition. And I think that there could be some movement here in textiles on that, among other things in terms of sustainability. There's no definition of sustainability at all in the Green Guide.
Would this only apply to goods that are manufactured in the United States?
I don't think so.
Does it somehow address imports?
I think it addresses imports.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Isn't it about what's marketed in the
United States? It's marketed.
It's about the language that's used.
Yeah, it's however you market something. It's truth in labeling.
Okay, cool. There's something else I wanted to bring up. Dolce & Gabbana, about a week and a half ago, announced their sustainability plan. And on the one hand, it was remarkable for how weak it was. On the other hand, it was even more remarkable for the fact that they came out and said, we know we're way behind and it's really weak and we're just starting, but we're going to catch up. They've joined a consortium that was recently formed among 6 companies in Italy. Let's see, it was Prada, Zegna, Max Mara, Moncler, and OTB, which owns Diesel and Marni and a bunch of brands. They're going to work together to share data, to share what's working in their practices. This is a concept that honestly I don't think it would work outside of Italy, but Italian
Why is that?
companies.
Why do you think that?
Because Italians, I know they have a reputation for being chaotic and competitive with each other, but the truth is, at the end of the day, they really cooperate a lot. I mean, I've seen cases where an Italian factory would get an order that was too big to handle, and instead of trying to work all their employees 24/7 to get it done, they hand part of the order to a competitor to get it done. I mean, Italy doesn't get a lot of press for that kind of thing, but it's very intriguing. And so this is really early stages. This consortium is called ReCrea, R-E and then hyphen C-R-E-A, the ReCrea consortium, and they just had their first meeting a couple of weeks ago. They are not far along on it, but I'm planning to keep tabs on it, and I think it's kind of very interesting to see. Remembering also that these are luxury Italian fashion brands, so they're way ahead. They are not fast fashion, right? They're all manufacturing in Italy using fantastic fabrics. So they've sort of already leapt a lot of the hurdles that we talk about every day in terms of quality.
Have they mentioned what their top line focus is going to be to start, or?
It's no, there's no one top line thing. I mean, they're all, for instance, Dolce & Gabbana is converting all of their electrical use, I think, by the end of this year. So it probably has already been done. In Italy is all going to be green. But next year it'll be all of Europe, and I can't remember the date, but I think the following year it would be globally. Mm-hmm. They would all switch to sustainable, which is really a matter of renegotiating their contracts with utilities, right? Mm-hmm. They're doing a huge retraining program for every single Dolce & Gabbana employee around the world, from top executives to store assistants and janitors. And it's depends on what their job is. If they're sourcing fabrics, then they're going to be trained in how you source fabrics better. If they're just office workers, they said one of the things we want to teach people to do is turn the lights off when you leave.
Oh my
the room.
God, I was going to joke about that.
I thought it was so fascinating, Christina, in your piece for Vogue Business on Dolce & Gabbana, that they were, you said this earlier, but that they describe themselves as we're crawling, not walking. We're late entrance. Like, they were just so brutally honest about themselves. You don't really ever see that, especially from a luxury brand.
Well, it also feels
everything
very
is super
Italian
polished.
when they're like, they're kind of like,
You think?
we're here, we're late. We're going to do it better than you.
The other thing that I loved, Christina, about your piece is that
we're sorry that you're not Italian.
Yeah. We're sorry you're not involved.
Yeah, right, exactly. Your quote from the head of sustainability, I think, for Dolce & Gabbana, and he said, please don't write this down because it would be embarrassing for me, but I am buying less, and it's bad. And I just, again, thought, wow, that type of honesty, you're not used to hearing.
Americans, we are king bullshitters. I have to say that. Like,
it's true.
I don't feel like
king bullshitters.
Yeah.
No, that's a t-shirt.
Yeah, he was as Marco Fermento. He was even more honest about that stuff. I actually thought.
Oh, then you edited it
between us. No, between us, I thought, he's saying this stuff I'm putting out there because it's true, and I was gonna say this about their plan, and then he said it. Wow. Yes, we're just starting out. It's weak. We have a lot of work catching up to do. Okay.
It's refreshing.
But I thought they would be furious. I got emailed thank yous from the CEO and from Mark. I mean, they were like, so it wasn't a slip of the tongue that he was. I mean, he made that point many times in an hour-long interview, and
very interesting.
And he meant it. It was the message that they wanted to put out there. So cool. Anyway, I don't know if we want to go there.
Yes,
this.
we do.
I feel sort
Christina.
Okay.
I am hurt that you wouldn't go there.
Wait, are we talking about underwear?
We're going. Yes, we are. So did you? I'm not sure if you saw this, but Lizzo recently asked on Twitter, what is the most ethical way of get rid of old panties that you don't want anymore?
Lizzo asking the question.
Is she not wonderful? I love her. Okay.
This is December 13th of 2022. She tweeted it out.
That's so great.
And it just
she
so
got a lot of
happens.
responses.
Yeah.
She did get a lot of responses, including from Rachel, because Rachel just talked about this in a Bloomberg piece.
Yeah.
I did.
So
I was like,
It's on people's minds.
It turns out that there's a lot of ways to do this. And
Yeah.
I have actually contemplated, okay, I got to get out the scissors and like cut out the elastic, compost the cotton, I guess. Help us, Rachel.
I mean, well, it was funny because I felt like I was learning along with the article I contributed to because, I spoke to the journalist primarily about sort of the barriers to entry in terms of actual recycling of undergarments, of underwear specifically, and bras as well, which face the same issues as most things, except maybe more for bras because there's so many component parts and there's so much elastane, which isn't recyclable. It's funny. I love this piece, and I also want to say the caveat that like underwear are pretty much the least of our problems in terms of the makeup of our waste and how much waste we have. But I think it is something that really brings to mind in consumers. Like consumers start to think about why don't we have recycling because of underwear often, I think, because they think I don't want to give this to a Goodwill. I don't want to pass this on. Like, what do I do with
totally
this?
not.
Right. And so from a marketing perspective and circularity, underwear is a perfect place to start to ask questions. And the answers are few and far between. And I think that what the piece sort of was centered on is this one brand says that they can compost your underwear. Can they? What are the health implications of that? Should you? What does composting mean? There's different types of composting. Composting could be in your backyard, right? But should it be?
If it's 100% cotton, right? That's the thing, that brand was 100% cotton.
Maybe if it's 100% cotton, but what's it treated with? I mean, you can't just take any cotton good and put it in your backyard, nor should you. And composting can also mean industrial.
Christina.
Because what?
Christina, stop putting all your underwear. Christina's got to go. She's
Has a full garden of cotton underwear.
I know, because I use my compost in the vegetable garden, so I definitely don't.
Christina's face reveals a lot of her cotton underwear have gone into her garden.
Actually, never have, but anyway, it never occurred to me.
Sure.
Until
I'm
Rachel
glad we
talked about it.
Yeah, what are they dyed with? Like the dyes,
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I actually had never really thought about it because I guess from a consumption point of view, I feel like I tend to keep my underwear for a pretty long time. But so I heard of some companies that so Fab Scrap and Nikki and 4 Days were some of the names of companies thrown around of folks who can take it back. And I think for some of them, they're not repurposing them, but they are maybe shredding them for insulation or carpet padding, or that's kind of how they talk about it. Right. And then some other solutions that people talked about, which I thought made a lot of sense, is that, obviously wash them and then use them as cleaning rags around your house.
That's what we used to do growing up.
That's a great idea.
This reminds me, honestly, of I wrote a column about men shopping for underwear at a time when there was a sudden explosion of new styles of underwear for men. It used to be boxers, and then they came out with boxer briefs, and then there were a billion of them. And I went into several department stores and interviewed men in the process of shopping, and a lot of them were quite confused about it and didn't like all the new options. And then so the column ran, and I was suddenly deluged with email from wives complaining that their husbands would never stop. They'd never get rid of their underwear. Like it would be ratty and have holes. And
so that's why there's a pink tax for men on their underwear, because the men's underwear companies are like, we know you're going to shop here like once every 30 years. So
we're going to charge you now because you're going to wear it until it's a rag. And then I got my most memorable one. I think I saved this one. I got this email from a man who said, "My wife keeps throwing away my underwear just when it gets comfortable."
You're like, I can't help you.
Isn't that sweet?
That's so funny.
Can't help you.
It's like a nice denim. You got to wear it in till it's the right shape and comfort.
Okay, we did Rachel's hot button.
We did.
Yeah.
Okay. Sheila, you got a hot button?
Well, okay, so I haven't watched the Harry and Meghan documentary. I don't know if you guys have the
Oh
documentary.
my God, I have so much to
refuse.
say. I just binge
You
watched it.
refuse. You did? Okay, well, we're gonna have to do this offline because I haven't seen it yet.
I don't want
haven't
to
seen
spoil
yet.
it, but
No
I
spoilers.
cried a lot. Let's just.
Wow.
Oh my God,
really?
it was
Oh, I
very
really want to talk
powerful.
about it. Christina, why did you refuse? I'm so curious. So you're sick of it all.
I don't watch The Housewives either. I don't know. I'm just like not
Yeah,
in
it's
sync
just
with
too
you
much.
guys on this.
You have a
I'm not
much
into-
higher quality of
Just
life.
because we have really great taste.
I know. Well, you're having way more fun than I am.
right. Well,
Okay.
what I was going to say about it is that, so I haven't watched that, but I don't know if you guys had heard about Kate and William's recent visit to the U.S.
Yes.
They came to Boston to present the Earthshot Prize, I guess environmentally focused awards. But what I thought was interesting was that Kate, and I'm not a fan at all, to say the least, of the royal family, and
Me neither.
and of that institution, obviously. But I did think it was interesting that Kate wore a rental dress.
Oh, she did?
That she rented from a London-based rental company, I think called Her, for £74. And Prince William wore a repeat outfit, a blazer that he had been shot in many times. And I just thought, even though I'm not a fan at all of that institution and most of the people in it, I did think that they do have a lot of power in terms of the messaging that they broadcast, and I thought that was really interesting.
Maybe I will watch it. Now that you're saying that, I'm realizing that one of the things, I haven't given a great deal of thought to it, but one of the things that I've liked about the Harry and Meghan thing is that they're rebelling.
They're not
against all
fans
that.
of the institution either.
Oh, I did want to drop just a little gift, a holiday gift onto your social feeds, which is this account called from this professional fighter called Keith Lee on TikTok, Keith_Lee125. And he's this professional fighter who's turned into this food critic. And it's so delightful and just so different than anything you've ever seen. I'm just trust me.
What's his handle?
Keith_Lee125.
Okay. Lee is Lee.
Lee. Yep.
My hot button is just literally to wish you guys a fantastic holiday. Rachel, Sheila, also everybody at Postscript Audio. We are so grateful for what you do. And I hope that you guys all take off next week and just bask in love and light and peace. And
Wow. That's a beautiful message.
It's
Can I
so
change
sweet.
my hot button?
If I were able to be vulnerable, I would say the same thing. I can't access that part of me, but it was beautiful.
I love laughing
I
with you
second
guys.
that.
I honestly do. That's all for the show. Please support us by following us on Twitter @HotButtonsPod and now on Instagram @HotButtons.pod, or send a link to friends or colleagues and go to Apple or Spotify and give us a rating. We're also streaming on Amazon Music. We really appreciate your support. If you want to email us with story ideas, send a note to hotbuttons@postscriptaudio.com or leave us a voicemail, like Nathan and Chantal did, at our new call-in line. It's 508-622-5361. Give us a call. Hot Buttons is hosted by me, Christina Binkley, Sheila Kim Parker, and Rachel Kibbe. The show is produced by Postscript Media. Our senior editor is Ann Bailey. Our engineers are Greg Villefranc and Sean Marquand. Cecily Mason-Martinez is our managing producer. Stephen Lacey, Scott Clavenna, and Rachel Kibbe are our executive producers. Postscript Media makes podcasts at the intersection of climate with culture, politics, business, and tech. Postscript Media is supported by Prelude Ventures. Prelude is a venture capital firm focused on climate solutions across energy, food, agriculture, transportation, logistics, and advanced materials. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch up with you next year. Okay.
Sheila's got all the good social media.
I know. I don't know how you find time to work.
I
if
just
you are
want Sheila to be my algorithm.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be my dream job.
Yes.